I, nearly adult female, live with my mother, my sister, 29, and my niece, kindergartner. I'm autistic and really sensitive to noise. Baby cries are among the worst. When my niece was born, she had colic, and it was the worst experience of my life. Her nursery was right next to my room, and our walls were thin, so I never slept. The nursery and my room were both in the basement, while my mom and sisters were upstairs, so I was the one dealing with it when the baby woke up often. I had a lot of meltdowns over this. It completely wrecked my performance in school. It sounds stupid, but I genuinely became suicidal. The constant noise, being expected to care for the baby when my sister couldn't, and the sleep deprivation all felt like a nightmare that would never end. The colic lasted 4 months, but even after that, I really struggled. My niece yells all the time when she's playing. Her idea of fun is just making screeching noises. As soon as she realized it upset me, she'd do it intentionally in my ear, especially on car rides, until I was sobbing. It drives me insane. If my niece is home, there's constant noise. My mother and sister are able to tune out the noise, but I can't. If I can hear something, I can't focus on anything else. To be clear, I understand that none of this is my niece's or sister's fault, and it's not anyone's responsibility other than mine. I'm just trying to paint an idea of why this is so overwhelming for me. I don't dislike kids. Living with them is just a lot for me. Yesterday, I learned that my sister is over 6 months pregnant, and they've known each other for 4 months. I noticed her stomach was larger, but my sister's pretty overweight, so I never really became suspicious until recently. They told me they planned to keep it from me as long as possible until I noticed, which terrified me. I really wish I had more time to prepare for this. I'm terrified to do this semester of school, knowing that by the end, I'll be living with a baby again. I don't expect my sister to not have another baby or anything. I just really feel hurt and betrayed that they were planning to hide it for as long as possible. I know I'm not owed this information. It just feels like a courtesy, considering we're living together. I've been considering moving to my dad's in another state, but he lives with my brother, who was abusive towards me. And it seems like an awful idea anyway, because I'm going into the last semester of my senior year of high school. I mentioned that I wish they'd told me sooner, and my sister got upset because I'm a child who doesn't need to know all of her private business. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your sister needs to be the one sleeping in the basement next to the baby's room. She's the one getting pregnant. She needs to be the one dealing with said baby at night. It sounds like you were the primary person in charge of your niece during the nighttime responsibilities. Are they expecting you to do that again for the new baby? Your mom and sister clearly have no respect for you or your triggers. They apparently have not told your niece not to scream in your ear, which baffles me. They make you sleep next to a colicky baby? Did your sister even get up at night to help care for the baby? Or was it all you? I think your sister's taking advantage of you and your time and help. I'm very sorry you've had to go through this. Make it clear that you will not be caring for this baby or sleeping next to the nursery. You really need to stand up for yourself on this one, to both your sister and mom. I know it's hard, but it's necessary. There needs to be very clear boundaries. Your feelings are valid. If they fight you on this, I would just move your stuff to a different upstairs room. Show them how serious you are about this. They admitted that they would hide it from you for as long as they could. They weren't going to give you time to process it or object. Since your mother's enabling this BS, I'm guessing they'd be against you swapping rooms with your sister. Get yourself some noise-canceling headphones and tell your sister to get a baby monitor. When her baby cries or niece needs her, she can traipse her butt downstairs to care for them. You didn't get knocked up. You are not responsible for her children. If they threaten to kick you out for not allowing them to parentify you, respond that you'll call CPS for neglect, since the mother of the children's not taking care of them. Move out as soon as you're able. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Good luck. I, 34 male, work in a physically demanding field. My coworkers and I are all fit people without a lot of body type variety. My wife, 32, is fat. The thing is, she's always been overweight. The whole time I've known her. We dated when she was fat, got married when she was fat. She knows she's fat. She's overweight and she's beautiful. I'm happy if she loses weight, and I'm happy if she stays where she is. I think she's the most beautiful woman in the world, as is. One of my coworkers, Julia, 28 female, started complaining that she's too fat to be loved, and fat people don't get to be loved. Julia isn't fat. She's maybe 120 pounds. She works out 5 times a week and barely ever eats. I told her that wasn't true and that my wife was fat. She got red in the face and started telling me that I wasn't allowed to call my wife fat, that I was insulting her, and that my wife was beautiful and curvy. Carol doesn't like being called curvy. She thinks it's a label used to avoid calling people fat because it's a dirty word to most people. I told Julia as much. Julia started threatening to tell my wife I called her fat. She pulled up her Instagram and told me she was messaging Carol that I was being mean. I beat her to the punch and called my wife. I put her on speaker and asked if she was curvy or fat. Carol laughed and said, "I hate that curvy crap. Fat and beautiful, baby." I thanked her, told her I loved her, and hung up. As soon as I hit end, Julia went mental. She started screaming that I was abusing my wife. When I asked how, she said I was brainwashing her into accepting the term fat to try to keep her complacent and from getting away from me. That no woman in her right mind could be okay with her husband calling them fat. Now, I just walked in today to an email from HR requesting a meeting with me. I don't think it's a big deal. I have my wife's blog for fat positivity and can easily call her for proof. But now things are frigid at work, and Julia constantly gives me dirty looks when we're in the same room. She ignores me otherwise. So I'm just over here scratching my head. Am I the idiot for calling my wife fat? Are you kidding me? What could Julia possibly report to HR? Harassing your wife who doesn't work with you? What you say to your wife is no one's business. Tell Julia to stay out of your personal life. You should file a complaint against Julia for creating a hostile work environment. You are not the idiot, and your wife sounds awesome. Julia should get a better hobby because she sucked at fishing for compliments and was shocked when she didn't receive one. Good luck with HR. Fat is not a protected class. Outside of Michigan, you didn't call Julia fat, and your wife isn't a coworker. I'm not a lawyer, but you would probably have a valid suit for wrongful termination should it come to that. You should complain about Julia, though, for creating a toxic work environment. I hate when women throw out lines like that. As a woman, if one of my friends repeats those lines over and over, e.g., "I'm so ugly," at a point I just agree with them. Like, yeah, you are incredibly ugly. It usually snaps them right out of it. I understand if someone's having a rough day and just needs a pick-me-up, but repetitive comments are annoying. Or obvious ones, such as in OP's case. Obviously, someone who's 120 pounds is not fat unless they're like 3 feet tall. Wow, Julia's being overbearing and insecure. I wonder why she can't get anyone to date her. Yeah, it totally sounds like her perfectly normal body type that is incredibly off-putting, not her bizarre hair-trigger personality. My 28 male, sister 33, is visiting me this week with her daughter, my niece, young teen. I was excited to host them in my house, as I haven't really seen my family much ever since I moved away from our home state for my career. For context, I'm a lawyer at a large firm. That means that I have to take work home often, so I have a room in my house set up as an office. My office has privileged information about cases and clients. Long story short, when my sister and niece arrived yesterday, and after I helped them get settled in, I told them that there's only one rule that I have for staying in my house. My office is off limits. Fast forward a few hours, and everything's fine and dandy. I'm just sitting on the couch with my sister, watching a movie, until I get a call from a senior associate at work asking me to do a quick review of a document that he sent me via email. When I get upstairs, I see the door to my office is wide open and the lights are on. When I went to investigate, my niece was sitting in my chair and taking selfies with her feet on my desk. I was beyond furious. I only have one rule for guests at my house, and it's to stay out of my office. I have that rule for a reason. Not only would I be at risk of disbarment, but the integrity of the entire case would be jeopardized if any of that information is leaked. While I'm not accusing her of that specifically, I don't want uninvolved people in my office taking pictures and posting them on social media where there may or may not be protected information in view of the camera. I asked her what she was doing, and she said I was just curious. I want to be a lawyer like you when I grow up. I told her, get the heck out and stay out, you little witch. My sister came running up the stairs after my niece started crying, and she told me that I was a monster for talking like that to a kid. I told her she had no business being in my office, and my sister said it didn't matter because she's just a kid. So, am I the idiot? Everyone's the idiot here. A young teen is old enough to understand that a certain room is off limits and not to go in there. Your sister, because she didn't seem to be teaching her daughter to follow the rules that you set out and not giving her daughter any consequences for entering your office without permission. But calling niece a witch was taking it way too far. As a lawyer, you should have a much better grip on handling stressful situations without losing your cool. Yeah, dude, what's wrong with you? As a solo practitioner, I have to say this. I think a couple of fancy pants big firm attorneys who have a bunch of privileged crap in their home office, just like I do, would put a locking knob on the door and/or keep all materials in locked cabinets when not in active use. You need to adequately protect these materials. Sure, your front door locks, but once someone is in the house, apparently they could easily get into this stuff without you noticing in time. Yeah, what the heck? I don't have physical files, and my workstation locks. But if I'm having people over, I just lock my computer in my desk. No big deal. It adds 30 seconds to my day, which means I'm actually doing my job. Even a spouse being able to access it would get me in trouble if I was found out. And calling a girl names was pathetic of OP. You're a lawyer, supposedly a professional person. Be better. I, 29 female, am getting married in 5 months and have struggled to find a wedding dress that I like. I've been to a lot of stores, looked online, and tried everything. I told my coworker, Lily, 30 female, and she suggested that I go to see her sister-in-law, Ruby, 23, who custom-made her wedding dress. Ruby's very talented and helped design my dream dress and gave me constant updates to make sure it was what I wanted at every step of the designing and sewing process. She even allowed me to alter the design later and change some details of the dress. We had discussed prices and agreed on Ruby's rate at the start of the process, and she informed me that any alterations would be included in her flat rate. I paid in installments and the last 50% at the end. I collected my dress last week, paid the rest of the bill, and thanked Ruby for all her help and expertise. I even left a glowing review and told her I'd recommend her to friends. Lily reached out to me on Ruby's behalf yesterday to ask about the dress, and I praised Ruby for her help. Then Lily asked me if I liked the dress so much, why I didn't tip her. Ruby felt too awkward to ask, and Lily said I took advantage of her services and should have tipped because of the extensive work Ruby had done for me, including the free alterations. She went on to say that custom wedding dresses are usually way more expensive, but as Lily had mentioned, we were friends to Ruby, and Ruby had given me a discount and included my alterations for free. I was shocked to get a passive-aggressive message from Lily on Ruby's behalf, so I wrote back to say that this was highly unprofessional and that as she was the only one working, she could have just adjusted her prices to include the tip rather than expect the customer to pay after the service finished. I've never had anything custom made before, so I don't know if it's standard to tip, but I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Not the idiot, but both Lily and Ruby are. If Ruby gave you a discount, steep or otherwise, that's on her. You didn't force her hand. She shouldn't have expected you to make up the difference in an unspecified tip that you were mysteriously supposed to be aware of. It was nice of you to write a glowing review for her. You should ask her for a tip too. Geez, tipping culture is out of control. You agreed on a price and she delivered. You don't tip on bespoke dresses. You pay a premium for having a bespoke dress. If your changes affected the cost, it should have been negotiated when the design and details were altered because the scope of the work changed. So naturally, the cost might change. I never heard of tipping a professional. Service workers, yes, and that's customary. I don't tip my lawyer, mechanic, doctor, contractor, or anyone who's a professional either. They tell me their fee, and I pay that, or I don't use them. The idea is really foreign to me. She hadn't priced it properly because it ended up being more work than she anticipated. But that would be on her, not you. This should be a learning opportunity for her to quote her services better. My 27 female, husband 33, and I are currently taking care of his recently orphaned niece, pre-tween, with the plan to adopt her later. Her first name is Kelly, and her middle name is Ann. Fake names, but she prefers to be called Ann, and has been that way for a few years now. She introduces herself as, "My name is Kelly Ann, but you can call me Ann." My sister, 29, is 8 months pregnant with her first child, and several months ago found out it's a girl. She's always wanted to name her daughter Ann, and is excitedly telling everyone. Upon learning of Kelly Ann's situation, and how my husband and I plan to adopt her, my sister told me a few days after that we should start telling Kelly Ann to call herself Kelly instead of her middle name. She said 2 Anns in the family would be confusing, so Kelly Ann needs to get used to being Kelly. My husband said she was being ridiculous, and if anything, it's her baby that needs renaming, because Kelly Ann's been calling herself Ann for years. My sister argued that she had announced her baby's name many months ago, and we only planned to adopt Kelly Ann recently, so we should be the ones making her rethink how to call herself. I joined my husband's side and told my sister that Kelly Ann could call herself whatever she chose to. My sister and her husband called my husband and me idiots for stealing her baby's name. So, am I the idiot for refusing to call my niece anything else but her chosen name? Not the idiot. No one should have to choose a different name. I know a few families with cousins who share a first name, and it's not a big deal. If your sister doesn't want to have 2 Anns, then she shouldn't use it. But expecting a child to adopt a different name than she's been using just because the sister has decided to use the selected name is entitled and mean, to say the least. Your sister and her husband are being absurd. There's not really any such thing as stealing a name, and Kelly Ann has been alive for far longer than their child and has been using the name for longer too. Out of curiosity, would they also expect you to change that child's name if you were to later adopt an older child into the family who came with the same name as one of their kids? Ludicrous. Exactly this. Ann has already lost so much. She shouldn't have to lose her name. Let's further traumatize Ann by forcing her to change her name for a baby that sister sees as a more legitimate family member than Ann. I mean, that's what's really going on. Sister sees herself and her baby as more human than Ann. Sister is gross and needs help. I had a way less difficult situation with my family. My wife and I chose names for our children way before we got pregnant. For a boy, we chose the name Jack, not the real name. We didn't tell family back then, and my sister, living with my parents, got herself a cat called Jack. So now we have a son with the same name as the cat. But who cares? We even call them Human Jack and Cat Jack. Tell your sister, great. We'll call them Big Ann and Little Ann.